Hello everybody in YouTube land, and welcome to what is actually probably one of my favorite videos that I record each year, where I take our investigator tier list. If you don't know, Travis, Bryn, and I make an investigator tier list every December around Christmas time, where we rank all of the investigators on a scale from D to S with how our own scales are. But then I take all of the investigator ratings that we have and I compare them to our previous ratings. And I like to see where we've changed, where we've stayed the same, and etc. etc. It's one of my favorite videos to make because I like seeing seeing how the whole thing is like how it's all been come together and how we might have changed over the last few years. Notably, there is a slight difference. This year is the first year that we had an A- tier, but was renamed to a B+ tier. It was Travis's idea, but honestly, the winning opinion was Astute Dunsparce, who was like B+, and I was like, you know what? If Astute Dunsparce says it, they're usually like a good barometer from when it's just like a good decision content-wise. So thanks, Astute. But it's that's going to be the big difference. So you might see some changes within each tier, within each ranking for investigators now that B+ exists. So why don't we dive in and get the show going? Because buckle up, it's probably going to be a pretty long one. I mean, it might not be that long, we'll see. But we're starting with Roland Banks. So this is actually going to go in cycle order. In 2023, notably, I gave him a B, Bryn gave him a C, and Travis gave him a B+. I've given Roland Banks a B every year. To me, Roland Banks is like the perfect B-tier investigator. And you actually see that over time, Travis has been starting to love Roland Banks a little bit more. Bryn has been consistent with C's for the last 2 years. But notably, in 2021, Bryn gave Roland Banks an A. So yeah, Bryn just loves hot takes. Yeah, no, there are a lot of Bryn hot takes in this retrospective here, but I don't necessarily agree with Travis or Bryn. I think that in their rankings that this is a pretty sound. Ravalos, 1 month of the Golden Table. Thank you for your support. Thanks for supporting the channel. Much appreciated. But I think that in both of their reasonings, it makes sense for where they fit on their tier lists. But for me, Roland Banks is just like a perfect B-tier investigator. It's one of those things where his stat line isn't great, but it's not terrible. His health pool is high, but his sanity is low, which means that, you know, his cover-up weakness is that much worse. His ability is really good. But ultimately, I always say, the game would be a lot better if everyone looked like Roland Banks. I wish that Roland Banks was like the epitome of the perfect investigator for the designers to follow, because I do think that Roland Banks is probably one of the most perfectly designed investigators. So, in another game where everyone was Roland, I think he would be a lot higher, right? But where he's sitting right now, I think that he is just like the epitome of a B investigator, and Past Justin agrees. Again, a lot of this is going to come from all of the analysis in this video is mostly going to come from my perspective because I'm the only one here. I can try to echo what I remember what Bryn and Travis say about them, but it's also just here so you can see how they trend as well. On to Daisy next, and I think this one is the most controversial. And I think it's entirely fair for people to say that I underrate Daisy. I think that's an entirely fair statement. This also might come because I just don't try to do the broken stuff with Daisy. I just try to go for like pure value, and I think she's mostly just fine for value. So like, yeah, if someone says that she should be higher, I agree. But I also disagree with my own personal tier list. I think she's very good. Like A is like a very good to great investigator. A+ is when we start to get to fantastic. And every time I've played Daisy, I've been like, she's really good, but I've never like, I guess, played the decks where I'm like, oh, she's fantastic. And I guess that kind of comes to me on that. So you can see that she kind of went to A this year. But notably, this is actually something that we're going to see... kind of trend through a lot of my ratings. My ratings have kind of changed a little bit this year, and a lot of investigators that I viewed as higher have actually been kind of like dropped down a little bit, just because after I've played every card and experienced every investigator, I kind of have a little bit more experience with them. So like my own personal, the wolf that I fed inside of me, kind of ate more on some of these being lower. Travis gave A pluses to Daisy all the time, which I think once again I don't disagree with, because I gave her A pluses in the last 2 years. This was just an outlier. She could be back at A plus again next year. It depends, I guess, on once again what she gets in Hemlock Vale, which at the time of recording this video we have not seen the entire box set for. And then there's Bryn in the middle. I mean, I get it, right? He's not high on Seekers in general. They're not like his way of going about things. Also, like how he views what's good in the game is different than what we view what's good in the game. And I think this actually kind of trends, like the B plus. He gave it an A because a B was too low. You know, it's one of those things. I think a B plus makes sense, at least for how Bryn views the perspective of this game. But once again, with Bryn, you also don't know if he's actually trolling or not. But I do think Bryn is like, I think like the B plus makes sense from Bryn's perspective on how Bryn views power in Arkham, because Bryn views power in Arkham differently than how Travis and I do. And like Bryn is a great player and a great deck builder. So I think always chalking this down to just, you know, Bryn's just trolling isn't the best way, isn't the most accurate way, because I think Bryn has his reasons for why Daisy is this for Bryn's style of play. Because really, that's what tier lists all boil down to, right? It's each individual player's style of play that's forming the tier list. And if you say otherwise, congratulations on being the least biased person who's ever existed. You are literally a god, and you don't exist. All right, on to Skids O'Toole. Down into the ditch with Skids. I gave him D's. Bryn gave him D's. Travis, however, gave Skids a C, and I respect it. There's got to be that person who is starting to be like, this investigator is turning a new leaf. I don't disagree. Like, if someone put Skid as a C, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense, right? For me, personally, he's a D just because, like, you have an ability that can do good, but it does good so rarely, and it's just completely outclassed, right? That's the thing. It's one of those things that, and I even seen in chat with Dirty Fighting and Thieves Kit, it made Skids a lot better. True, but I would argue that Thieves Kit 3 and Dirty Fighting made other rogues better too, which means that in theory, nothing's changed. Right? Like, in theory, it's one of those things where, like, Dirty Fighting and Thieves Kit are really good for, like, a majority of the rogues that exist, or people who can access it. So, Skids actually doesn't get better. He just stays the same, right? Like, that's kind of the problem with Skids. However, with all that said, I'm excited for Skids with the Wolf Mask. I think Wolf Mask, Skids is probably, like, like, he's gonna love the hell out of Wolf Mask. We can all agree on that, right? I think this is, like, one of the first cards that I've seen where I'm like, you know, Skids wants that, you know, more than other, like, people with similar deck building does, like, apart from maybe Zoe. But, I mean, once again, everyone wants Wolf Mask, probably if you're a Guardian who can fight. But Skids, like, really wants it. Skids is, like, that's, like, what Skids is craving, baby. Yeah. There's, the reality is that there has to be D-tier investigators. That's just, like, impossible to avoid in game design. Because if everyone was A-tier, someone would be B-tier. And then if everyone was B-tier, someone would be C-tier, and, like, so on and so forth. I have fun playing Skids the few times that I played him recently, but he is still just, I wish his ability, like, was better, you know? That's kind of the thing. Once again, Skids is going to the Roland School of Design, but he is He has like a worse card pool than Roland, right? All right. On to Agnes. This one's pretty boring. It's stayed relatively flat over the last 3 years. I gave her A's. Bryn gave her A's. Travis gave her an A and then 2 A+. So Agnes has gone down a little bit for Travis just in this last year. Once again, I don't like to look at it like a trend unless it's been like 2 years. But even like 3 years. Like it's pretty consistent for Agnes and for Bryn and I. But Travis just dropped her to an A this year. Pretty boring, not too much to say. Agnes is a very good investigator. So I think this is all very sound for where we put her. Yeah. Nice and boring on Agnes. Good job. Yeah, Agnes is great. She's fun to play. All right. The Wendy Adams. This one is very interesting. And yes, it spells ass. I love every time it spells ass on the screen in these videos. That's secretly why I like it as much as I do. So if you notice something, I'm actually I've always been, not like always lower, but I've been trending down lower than Travis and Bryn for Wendy. And it continues again this year. Where Bryn, in 2021, Bryn and Travis both gave her an S tier. I gave her an A+. I think Wendy's also great. A, once again, like A is like a great investigator. MIMO. B is a good investigator. A is a great investigator. But then in 2022, we all gave her A+. And then in 2023, I've dropped her down to an A, which I still think very good. I think Wendy is a good investigator. She's very powerful. But she's never been an S tier to me. Travis, however, bumped her back up to S tier, but Bryn once again was sitting at A+ tier. Wendy's ability is obviously very good. Like Wendy's ability, as Bryn always says, you could have a deck of 30 empty cards and Wendy could still get stuff done. However, maybe not. It's one of those things where like it's I don't know how to put it into words, but it's just like she also can be incredibly fragile in places, and you're living in fear a lot of your weakness as well. But once again, like I don't think A is a bad rating, but I just find it interesting that I'm trending again lower than Travis and Bryn for Wendy. Again, it's cool. It's cool. This is all, like, once again, why I love doing this stuff. It's really fun to see how things have changed and how there's trends in our opinions, which is cool. All right, on to Path to Carcosa. No, sorry, Dunwich with Zoe. All right, so this one we're kind of all over the place. So in the recent year, Travis and I both agreed with B+, right? Bryn likes Zoe. Zoe is, well, actually, Bryn, as you can see, is trending up from B to A to A+. Travis and I actually are in a similar position if you look at our 2022 and 2021 ratings, where we each gave an A and a B, but we were like, it's kind of like she's like, if there was an A- or a B+, she would live there. And now that we have B+, that's where she be, right? I think Zoe is a very good investigator. I like her a lot. Her ability is very good. Her card pool is Dunwich, so like there's things you can do, but it's always still one of those things. She has access to Down the Rabbit Hole, which I think is really fun. However, with all that said, I don't think XP I don't think XP is the end all be all, you know? I think a good player can do anything at any point, right? That's, I mean, I won Forgotten Age with a level 0 Lola deck, right? You can do anything if you just, like, play well. So that's why I personally don't take extra XP gain into account for Zoe Samaras. Time Roller, how's it going? How's it going? Yeah, I like Zoe a lot, though. She's very fun to play. She's the Guardian that I most commonly bring into blind plays on custom campaigns, mostly because she is good, but I never feel like I'm gonna have to work for it a bit more compared to someone like Nat Cho or like Will Yorick. What's the extra XP game for Zoe? Down the rabbit hole. Down the rabbit hole. Which is really good if you tried it. I might be doing something similar in Eric and I's run of the Circle Undone. Not with Zoe, but with another investigator who can do tricks like that. So, what's the class I play the most? Probably Blanket, Rogue, Survivor, Seeker are my top 3. It's Rex. Good job, buddy. You did it. So this is one of those things where I was wavering a bit. Because there's so many people online who say Rex isn't as good as he once was. And I was like, maybe that's right. We give him an S tier every year. Is Rex as good as I remember? Yes. I played Rex in the Arkham Gauntlet in Scarlet Keys. I was playing a good deck, but it wasn't even like an completely optimal as I wanted to build a deck. There were restrictions, and his ability is just what everyone else wants, right? A good example of this is a lot of people cite Daisy getting a great boost with Grim Memoir this year, where you get a clue. You can turn your ability into an extra clue each turn, and that's really good. You know who does that every time? It's Rex. And it's so easy to succeed by 2. You don't even need to work that hard for it. Rex is still, he just like kills it. I think that's it. Yeah, Growl GG. I think that's like, he may lost a bit, but he still had a huge lead. I agree. I think that's a great way of putting it. He is still like S tier, but he's not like S plus tier, like how he used to be. Especially in Dunwich, he was like S plus tier. But I beat Riddles and Rain like with so much time left because Rex is just really good. And now a deduction every turn is what everyone strives for in this game, and he has it printed on his card. Yeah. Good job, Rex. Jenny! So I gave her C's for the last 3 years. Bryn gave her CCD, and Travis gave her DDC. So as you can see, Jenny's not going to the moon, but she is living in the kind of the similar spot for us. Yeah. I think Jenny's thing is just that 3s suck, right? Like people always say with 3s in your stats, you can kind of imagine as if it was a jack of all trades, but really it's kind of a master of none, right? She can do big money. Yes, she can do big money, but she's not even like the best at big money. She can do it, but she's not the best. But she does do a deck pretty all right for it. Yeah. I think Jenny and then also Jim feel their Dunwich deck building a lot more than Rex, Zoe, and Ash can do. And it's funny because rogues actually have like the best upgraded cards, right? They have like the best like experienced cards, but Jenny can't like take advantage of them in the same way that other rogues can because once again she has all 3s. I think that's what it really all comes down to. I think if she had a not 3 stat line, it would be better. It's kind of funny, right? Because like if you have all 1s in your stat line, you're like, oh hell yeah, like okay, I'm a jank investigator with a cool twist, right? You have all 2s in your stat line, and you're like, all right, now we're talking. I'm also pretty fucking cool, right? You have all 3 in your stat lines, and you're like, I actually don't have anything to make up for this. right? Like, that's just my stat line. I don't get like a cool gimmick to make up for the fact that I have all threes, right? I am curious to see if Wilson Richards is going to be the first investigator to break this sort of trend. Because, yeah. No. So, I love Jim, and my C's were kind of just copium, you know? But I finally have dropped down into the D tier for Jim Culver. His stat line is good at like being kind of flexible. I think Jim would be in a much better place if he wasn't Dunwich, but he was Mystic Survivor. You know, if he was like Mystic 05 Survivor 02. You can, now that parallel Jim exists, you can let normal Jim go. I don't necessarily agree. Mostly just because parallel Jim, while I love his design and he's fun to play, it's kind of complicated. And there's a lot to like, you know, there's a lot more to keep track of. Where normal Jim is just like, I see skull, I clap, you know? So like, I don't have like a basic Jim experience. I'll still play Jim. Believe you me, I'll still play this guy. I like playing him. Mostly because he's a survivor, right? Like that's why I think I like Jim so much, is that he is actually a survivor wearing a mystic mask. And if he was Mystic 05 Survivor 02, I think we would be in a much, much better place. But unfortunately, he's not. And now he lives in the D tier. Ashcamp Pete. I don't think there's anything crazy to say about this guy. You know, B pluses across the board. I think Ashcamp Pete is a great example of a B plus investigator. He kind of lived in A tier for me because I didn't feel right putting him in B tier. But B plus is like a perfect spot for our boy Ashcamp Pete. Notably, Bryn gave him an S in 2021 and then dropped down to a B in 2022. That's Bryn, baby. But I mean, in all fairness, like, you might be asking, how can an investigator get weaker? And they necessarily don't get weaker, right? However, what the difference is that other investigators get better tools that that other investigators use better, right? So, like, if an investigator drops in power, it's not necessarily them getting weaker. It's just that other investigators are moving up and taking their spot with the new cards that came out with it. This isn't like a game like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, where the meta literally changes because it's competitive. But there still is a pseudo-personal meta that you have for Arkham Horror, the card game. Good job, Ashcan. All right, now we're on to Carcosa. And we got another ass, baby. We love the ass rankings. So, as you can see, A+ is for me across the board. Bryn joined us in A+ this year from S tier, and Travis joined an A+ for 2022 and 2023. Is it viable for a D investigator to be successful at a campaign? 100%. Any investigator can win a campaign in this game. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're wrong. You can do anything with any investigator. For me, when I'm viewing power ranking, a lot of it comes down to how much am I going to need to work to achieve victory. And all it means is that an S tier investigator is going to have to work the least hard to get it done. Aladat, 14 months at the Golden Table. Thank you for your support, and hello there to you as well. So that's what it kind of is, right? D doesn't mean unplayable. D just means you might have to work harder or need more pieces on the board to get your results done compared to a higher ranked investigator. Mark Harrigan is one of the best fighters in the game. He has card draw, which is really nice for Guardians. He has a lot of soak and healing. He's never been S tier for me personally, but as you can see, he is he's sitting very comfortable at A+ for me. Min T Fan, otherwise known as the one that people would always yell at me about because I put her in B. But she was just never A for me. She's definitely B+. She's definitely B+, A-. And she has a great card pool. I think she's got some great tricks to get there that she can do it. But when I make my tier lists, I am going off what I've seen other people play, what I've seen myself play, and putting all those together, as well as looking at the median, right? So, like, a lot of people remember their min deck where, you know, they got their infinite combo and did their loop. But they don't remember their min deck where, you know, you kind of floundered for a bit. And also, they don't remember their min deck that's kind of just, like, mid, you know? And I think that it's, like, one of those things where you got to, like, take all of that into account. I don't disagree with people who put her in A tier, right? I don't disagree with it. She's just a B+ for me, right? She's just B+ for me. And I think that's one of those things. You see, Bryn has been trending down with Min. But I like Min. I still enjoy playing her. I actually haven't played her in a while. I played her when we did one of our Scarlet Keys reruns and we died in the desert. That's when I played her recently. So as you can see, it didn't go too well because Min has to work a bit harder than other Seekers to get things done, is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, folks. I'm not saying she's bad. I just think she has to work a bit harder. Yeah. I think you can do Shed a Light with her, but I don't think it's worth it. It's one of those things, like, I think that she's still just kind of, like, at her best, just being, like, I don't know. I've played a lot of min decks. None of them are, like, really super memorable to me. Once again, this might be like Daisy, where, like, I'm not building the decks that go infinite, also because those decks bore the hell out of me. But it's one of those things where this B+ comes from my perspective of that as well. But I'm very happy with her in B+. I'm glad we added that this year. Safina Rousseau, not too much to say. B's across the board for me. Bryn's down to B. Travis has been B the last 2 years. Bryn loves Min. Sorry, Bryn loves Safina. Sorry, I was reading Min in chat, so it invaded my brain. Bryn loves Safina. That's probably why the S tier existed back in 2021. But it's one of those things where, yeah, just we're all just here in B's. Not much to say. I think Safina's, like, good, but she's also a little bit fragile. And a bad mulligan can absolutely kill you because you don't actually mulligan, right? You don't actually do that. You just are like, you see what you get and you take it. Yeah. Cool. Akachis. Travis and I both flatlined at A's and B's over the last 3 years. We've been very consistent about this. Bryn, however, as you can see, is getting higher on Akachi with each passing year. That's interesting. Why do you think that is? Because Bryn doesn't like Mystics. I learned that when we were doing the tier list. Or actually, no, when we were doing some recent drafting stuff for Forgotten Age, now that the video has finally gone live. Bryn just doesn't like Mystics, is what I've learned. Very interesting. Runic Axe? Bryn doesn't like to play Runic Axe, though. He says that card bores the hell out of him. That is true. Actually, Helicopter, I'm going to give that to you. Yeah, Bryn doesn't like Runic Axe, but if there was somewhere he was going to play Runic Axe, it probably would be Akachi. I think you're 100% right. I think that's got to be it, right? I think that's 100% the truth. Case in point where he's playing a Lily Chen sled dog deck through the Forgotten Age. But yeah, no, I think as you can see that this is... Travis and I are pretty boring for this one. We've just stayed the same, but Bryn is going up, which is super interesting. And if I had to wager... Yeah, it's probably because of Runic Axe, because this is probably the only place Bryn would play Runic Axe. Will Yorick. I have stayed flat at A+ for the last 3 years. Bryn has put him up to S tier this year, which honestly I don't necessarily disagree with. Not for my own personal ranking, but if someone said Will York was S tier, I'd be like, hell yeah, brother. And Travis has also joined up at the A+ tier as of this year, with A's with the previous 2 years. Yeah. I mean, Will York is honestly incredible, right? He's honestly incredible. You can do so much good stuff with him. And his Elder Sign is one of the best in the game. His Elder Sign depends on... Basically, it depends on who you're playing. If you're Silas, yours is the best Elder Sign. If you're Will York, yours is the best Elder Sign. If you're Parallel Skids, yours is the best Elder Sign. Anything that recurs a card from your graveyard is like the Elder Signs that make you go, ooh. And he also has a signature that gives you victory, right? And he's also really fun to play. Will York is just a home run investigator. Very powerful. He's very powerful. You know what? This is good news. This is great news for Lola. This is the first year where Lola got all C's from all 3 of us. However, you will know that I was C last year. This was after the taboo list. I thought she was she had like a noticeable improvement with the tier list change. Sorry, with the taboo list change. But Lola, congratulations. All C's from every one of us. Time for another Alola run? Hey, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. I mean, in all fairness, probably it's time for a Hemlock Vale run soon. Am I right, Chad? I'm playing Dunwich for the first time with Rex and York, and I just found out on the easy track. Yeah, you got 2 really strong investigators. Are you playing no taboo list? Because if you're playing no taboo list, your Rex is also going to the goddamn moon. Yeah, I'm happy for Lola. She deserves to be in the C tier, I think. All right, on to Forgotten Age with Leo Anderson. This one's pretty... nothing too notable or exciting to talk about, right? I bumped him up into B+ this year. Travis and Bryn left him at B's. Yeah. Not too much to say there. I like Leo Anderson. I think he's really fun to play. I think his deck building is insane, but he's also kind of just there, you know? He's not like exactly... He reminds me a lot of Min, you know? He reminds me a lot of Min. Cool investigator, though. Yeah, not much to say. All right. Bye, Raphaelos. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out. Ursula Downs. This one's wild. So, once again, she kind of lived in, like, the world where she was between A and B for me, so that's why she was living, living, like, between them, so that's why she's at B+ for me this year. Just saw the new drafting videos of the reason why Bryn and Travis always wear a mask. Bryn wears a mask for personal reasons, and Travis was recently sick, so he didn't want to pass anything on to us. So that's why. Yeah, if you see like Travis wearing a mask, it's just because he's been sick recently. Bryn, once again, personal reasons. My wife's a teacher, so there can be an infection in our house that we don't even know about. So it can come to that kind of thing. Yeah, Bryn dropped down to the D tier with Travis. And Travis has been consistently D for Ursula Downs in ever. Like forever. Travis has his reasons. I highly advise, I'll try to remember to link it in the video description, But to our tier list video, I highly recommend it because Travis actually goes into further insight for why he gives Ursula a D tier in the comments for that video. But I think the thing about Ursula, why she isn't D tier for me, is because, like, she's also still just good. Like, a lot of Travis's D tier is that there's no reason to play investigators in the D tier. Like, there's no reason to play them, and he views her deck building as non-existent. And I think generally, yes, this is kind of the problem with Finn and Marie as well, where their deck building's missing little something, right? Missing that juice that gives them like a little bit more. So yeah, as Travis Monroe says, she just needs one more relic. One more relic is going to take her to the moon. Amina too. However, Amina's getting a big boost in Hemlock Vale, so I think Amina's already starting to see some changes for that. I mean, the problem with Ursula is that a good chunk of relics are already Seeker cards, and that's kind of Amina, Sir Ursula's problem. With Amina, and like this is Finn's problem as well, right? A lot of the illicit cards are rogue, and the designers say yes, that is supposed to be a handicap, but I don't necessarily agree with that logic. But there's a lot of charms that aren't mystic cards, you know? Kate and Science. I'm not talking about Kate and Science anymore. I'm not talking about Kate. She should have been. I wish she was the Seeker Rogue. I wish. It would have been so cool. There could have been so many cool shit you could do, but now you're just gonna, like, she's just another mono Seeker investigator. I don't know. What do I know? What do I know? I think Ursula has a case of people missing her actual raw power behind her being uninteresting. I agree. However, with that said, Travis plays a lot of... Travis plays 3 and 4 player. Travis rarely plays 2 player. And 2 player and solo is where Ursula, like, shines. In 3 and 4 player, her ability is kind of poopy. Travis also hates when, like, your ability forces you to move. So, like, I respect it all, you know? But, like, I think Ursula scales incredibly well when you get lower player counts. I love playing her. She is my, how I said that Zoe was my guardian, my goon that I bring into blind plays for custom campaigns. Ursula's the same. Ursula is my blind play seeker most commonly. Because she's, like, very good, but she's not exactly busted. Finn Edwards! She could play Red Clock and Golden Pocket Watch. I can't talk about Red Clock 2 anymore because chat gets mad at me when I shit talk Red Clock 2. I'm not allowed to anymore. So Finn's very interesting for me. I didn't realize how much that this man is kind of wiffle-waffled all over the place. I think, you know, in retrospect now, B+ is like, I think maybe a bit low. He probably should be an A tier, I think. I don't know why I gave him B+ this year. I'll have to go back and check, right? It's very interesting. I like Travis and Bryn, though. They've kind of just flipped this year. They're like the same guy, but different. But I'm all over the place. I honestly think this B+ was, looking back now, an incorrect placement. But unfortunately, it's locked in forever. It's in the history books. I gave a B+ to Finn in 2023. I don't agree with it now. It's very strange. I can't even defend it. I feel like he should be A. I'll have to go back and watch the video, see what I said about Finn. You know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to pause this. Alright, so I checked it out. So the B+, because for my videos, like I said, it wasn't until after Travis's video when I saw Stu Dunspar's comment ranking saying that B+ is the way to go, that I changed it to B+. So like he's really, I put him in A-, which feels a lot softer than B+, right? So that's why he's living there. The reason is because, like, once again, like, his deck building's a little bit weird. He doesn't get, like, to do, like, the real big rogue payoff stuff, but he still gets a lot of the level 3 stuff, which is very good. So, yeah. That's kind of where we're living with this. I don't disagree at A-. B+ just feels different, but I do think if you look at it like a B+, A-, it is, I think, pretty good. If he could play Blur 4, yeah, if he could. Unfortunately, he can't. Father Mateo. So, this is the first time. If you notice that there is no value, that means that it was either not ranked or not available. They were, like, chosen to be put into the NA of our tier list. Just doesn't have enough to form an opinion. This is interesting, isn't it? Not so much Bryn. Bryn's like D's. Travis has been D for the last 2 years, but started as C, and I started as B and went down to CC. I think a big reason why I view Father Mateo as stronger than Jim. I mean, it's actually kind of like, it's kind of pretty obvious, isn't it, right? He has an ability. He has an ability. And his card pool is better than Jim's, right? Like, that's what it kind of all comes down to. But they're very similar. The two guys are very similar. Was Innsmouth released already in time for the 2021 tier list? I think so. I actually don't know off the top of my head. We'll see when we get to Amanda Sharp, right? If she had a rating in 2021. Yeah. Not anymore with the new Token of Faith. Now everyone can cancel autofails. Yes. Yes, let me look at the new Token of Faith. Because I remember that one... Oh, shit. 1 second, Hemlock. I have to look at the new Token of Faith. Because I mean, I actually think that Father Mateo's getting a big boost in this expansion. Well, it doesn't cancel. It doesn't cancel the autofail. But Father Mateo and new Token of Faith are very different cards in terms of how they interact with the autofail effects. Father Mateo is better. I mean, Father Mateo can play Token of Faith, right? Can he play Bless 0-3, or does he stop at 0-2? But I do think that Father Mateo is going to get a big boost of Hemlock Veil. However, yeah, with Growl GG, I do agree with what you're saying, that a lot of people are eating his lunch. But however, like in the blessed part of the lunch, however, New Olive, the New Olive McBride, is now giving Father Mateo his own part of the lunch, where it is all about token manipulation to just fish as many Elder Signs as you can get out of the game. So it's going to be one of those things where I think Olive McBride is going to give Father Mateo a big boost, because you basically now have you have a test a turn where you can like fish for an additional Elder Sign. And the more times you trigger Father Mateo's Elder Sign, the better that MFer is going to be. C for Kelvin, am I right? I gave him B's. Mostly because, like, it's one of those things where Travis and Bryn talk a lot about how there's, like, only one way to build Kelvin right, and that kind of makes him a little bit boring. I, however, personally disagree. I think there are two ways to build Kelvin right. One of which is the traditional Kelvin right, that is just, you know, you soak and you don't die. The other one is you play Survivor and you just don't worry about your ability. Your ability is like a positive. Isn't it wild that Kelvin was like A+ tier in the even older tier list, in which you did with all three of you? I don't think so. I mean, like, I think that's high. However, like, having to balance like three opinions, we'd kind of always have to meet in the middle, right? So I don't think it's that crazy. But like, I think A+ is certainly high. But there's also a lot less investigators. Our opinions were less knowledgeable, so I'm not surprised. I don't think it's that wild. I think the more wild one was giving Tony a B. I think that was the real wild one. But I like Kelvin. I think he's good. I think that he's probably going to be a B tier investigator for me for a good majority of his life from here on out. Yeah, try the Kelvin that just doesn't care about stats and just turns values to 0, succeeds by failing. It's a fun deck. And yes, other survivors can do it, but other survivors don't turn into God at the end of the scenario. Except for maybe Hank Sampson. He literally has 2 phases of his Bloodborne boss fight. Alright, on to the Circle Undone. These Bryn rankings for Carolyn are wild, aren't they? These are just wild. Travis and I, nice and boring. A's across the boards from 2021 to 2023. B to A plus to B plus. You'd love to see it. Yeah, I don't have much to say. Mostly because it's just my opinion on Carolyn has been so flat, right? Same with Travis's, right? The opinions there are pretty flat. Yeah. Don't have much to say about Carolyn. She's good. She's very good. Her ability's nice. But maybe check out the tier list with Bryn. You can see how that is. B plus, A plus, B. Wild. All right. Joe Diamond. Yeah, once again, I don't think there's too much exciting here. I think Joe is a perfectly good investigator. He has his weaknesses. He has his strengths. CBC from Bryn. BCC for Travis. Yeah. Pretty cool. I think yeah, C is fine for Joe if someone puts him in C. Once again, I've been pretty consistently B. Travis put him up to B tier this year. I actually thought Travis had him in B last year, but C this year? Yeah, pretty cool. Not much. This one has stayed pretty flat. No trends, no exciting trends to see here, except for the Bryn bump in 2022 back down to 20. He liked him in 2022, likes him a little bit less for power in 2023. All right, Preston. Interesting. Okay, so Travis is pretty easy. Been A plus for the last 2 years, so I think it's looking pretty comfortable. So that's where he's gonna live. Notably, I think that Preston is a perfect example of a B plus investigator for me. He was B one year, A the other year, B plus in the middle. So he's kind of fluctuated between the two, and if there was no B plus, he probably would have been A or B again this year. Bryn, from C to A to B in 2023. Interesting. I wonder if that 2022 A kind of comes from the amount of turkeys that Preston would throw at enemies in our draft run with Preston. Potentially. Potentially. Cool. Nice job, Preston. Pretty well liked by Travis. And A pluses. For me personally, yeah. Personally, A plus is a little bit high for me, but I respect Travis's ranking for it. Diana Stanley. Now this one's interesting, huh? Diana Stanley back in the day was the one that YouTube would always yell at me for. Another one. And put her to A in 2022. Bryn, flat A for the last 3 years. However, Travis has dropped her down to B plus from A plus this year, which is cool. Gabriel Bardo, 4 months at the Golden Table. Thank you for your support. I hope you're having a great day. And thanks for helping me out and supporting the channel. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't liked or subscribed, you should do so. Supporting the channel allows me to make more Arkham Horror videos for you at home. Yeah, I'm curious why. I'd have to watch the video where Travis gave Diana a B plus from A plus, because A plus to B plus is a pretty big drop, right? It's not like from like A to B plus or A plus to A. That's 2 tiers that she dropped for Travis. I'm very curious about that. Has she gotten any wild cancels recently, or have her cancels kind of just stagnated, right? I don't think she's gotten any cancels. I think that's probably why, right? Like, I could be wrong, but I can't recall any in Edge of the Earth or Scarlet Keys. Am I wrong, chat? Or have there been any? Has there been a cancel or ignore that I'm missing in there? Also, could be because Strong Arm is an or. Yeah, but that's from Hemlock Vale. That doesn't count yet. We didn't have those cards. We didn't even know that card existed, I think, when we made these videos. Get behind me is ignore. Get behind. Okay, yeah. Get behind me. Okay, yeah. So that was Edge of the Earth. I think that's the one, right? Also, it could be because I don't know how much Travis keeps up with the FAQ stuff, but like for the change to deny existence, also could have been a knock against her to B plus. I think that kind of makes sense. Travis is just looking at Diana from the perspective of that her card pool hasn't really grown in the way that other investigators have. I can get behind that. I can get behind that. And you know what you need to do, chat? You need to get behind me. Just Arkham jokes. You know how it is. Marie Lambeau. This one's interesting, right? Bryn slowly dropping Marie Lambeau to the bottom over the years. Me just being boring and keeping her at B tier because I think she's good. Travis from C to D to B. Probably because of Scarlet Keys, right? If we're being honest. Probably because Travis is like the Scarlet Keys stuff has given her a bit more juice. It is criminal. Okay, criminals. Okay, it's a hyperbole, so just bear with me. But it is criminal that Marie Lambeau cannot play the upgraded Doom assets from Scarlet Keys. I do not get that. Mostly also because they're not worth 4 experience, right? So it's like a double whammy. It's like they put them up to 4 experience because they were like, Marie shouldn't play these. But then they forgot that they were 4 experience. Like maybe they were like 3 experience for the longest time. And they were like playtesting them at 3 experience. And they were like, this is fun. And then someone was like, oh, but what about Marie? They tried it with Marie and they were like, this is too strong. Let's just not give them to Marie. And then they were like, but they didn't change the cards. You know? Like, that's kind of like the issue, right? If you can give the Doom Charms to Marie or the level 3 to Skull to Tony, what would it be? Definitely 100% the Doom Charms to Marie. Because Down the Rabbit Hole exists. And Down the Rabbit Hole with the sickles, the pentacle, and the rod, there's something there. But Marie can't do it. I think that's really unfortunate. Hey! We haven't had one of these for a while where we all kind of agree on it. Rita Young, B plus across the boards. Up from D tier to me, because I wrote bad, apparently. I was actually playing the long con chat. I wanted to write bad from Rita Young, so joke's on you, Tasty Toast. No, I do think that she wasn't a B tier. She was A tier in 2022, but with the A minus B plus tier, she's very much a B plus, I think. Yeah, I think this is a great spot for her. Travis and Bryn are actually like the same. They're actually like the same for this. They're very flat for that, which I think is really cool. But I think we're all just kind of in agreement on where Rita exists in the game, which I think is really good. I think she's in a great spot. I think Rita is like exactly where she needs to be. All right, on to Dream Eaters. Get ready. There are some very powerful investigators in this expansion. I always forget how fucking good the Dream Eater investigators are. Tommy is a good investigator. Travis has given him A's over the years. Bryn has fluctuated between A and B, and I went from B to A minus, B plus this year. I don't disagree. I think this is a nice spot for Tommy Muldoon. I also don't disagree. So when I say I don't disagree, I mean like A tier. I don't disagree with Travis and Bryn putting him in A tier. He's B plus for me personally, but I think A is a nice spot for him as well. Tommy's sick. I played him with a new player recently. I built him a Tommy deck, and they did great. Tommy's really simple. He has a lot of good tools at his disposal. It's hard to not like and have a good time with Tommy Muldoon. Now, let's go for the ride. Mandy Thompson. I gave her an A+ this year. I dropped her down from S tier to A+. Otherwise, we would have had another S's across the board. I think a reasoning for this, apart from it just being ass, so we get another ass on the screen. A big part of it is also that the designers have kind of been like, okay, Mandy was very strong, and they've been going around search. I don't care about the deck size. I've actually only seen, like, Travis has only played Mandy with, like, the big deck size. I actually don't think that's a problem. I think it's the fact that they got scared of Mandy and they've stopped printing searches. It's now, like, everything but. They're like, we can't do that again. We can't give her any more tools. And that's kind of crummy. I don't think it's, like, bad for, like, you know, keeping Mandy in check, but I think it's bad just for, like, the game, you know? So yeah, this doesn't come to me in the sense that, like, the 50 card I don't view as like game changing. I think it definitely hurts her inconsistency, but she's doing something that's already a powerful effect and making it stronger, right? Like, searching through your deck is very powerful, and doing it twice with one card is basically just turning all of those cards into 2 cards, which is a very powerful effect. But because they've been skating around the concept of search as a word, Mandy hasn't got enough new tools to, in comparison to other investigators in similar spots. So that's why I dropped her down to A+ for me in my personal rankings this year. But I like it because we got an ass going this way and an ass going this way. And an ass going this way. Let's go, chat. There's 3 asses on this screen. Horizontal, vertical, diagonal. Let's go. This one's just S's. There's nothing here that's, like, funny. Tony's just really strong. Tony's just, like, very good at what he does. He fights very well, and he kills very well. He's really good at killing bosses. He's really good at killing small enemies. He's not he's fragile to the mythos phase in terms of horror, but at the same time, I can't actually recall a moment where I've like died as Tony to horror. It's gotta have happened. Probably in the Gauntlet, right? Probably in the Gauntlet it happened, but there's a lot of good tools and tricks in Rogue, and not to mention, yeah, exactly that, Lonnie Ritter, right? Lonnie Ritter really helps. Yeah, S's across the board. Luke Robinson. Travis has given him an S tier every year. Bryn joined S tier for this one. I'm still A+ for Luke. He breaks the game in a different way than other investigators, right? Like, Tony and Rex, I think, break the games in terms of efficiency. Luke breaks the game in terms of the rules. The rules, and also, like, enemy management, right? So, like, I could definitely see him going up to S tier in the future for me, but he also needs to work, like, going to my definition of how hard you need to work. He does need to work a little bit harder to be able to get the job done. Not that much harder, but a Luke Robinson can be particularly fragile. His 5 meat damage is also particularly noticeable, but his abilities are so damn good. And his stat line is like a Roland stat line where there's nothing particularly great, but a Roland stat line isn't necessarily always a good thing, right? It's sometimes also just a okay thing. And that's kind of like where Luke Robinson drops a bit for me. 2021 in the A tier was a little bit wild, though. I think that was to me when I was a bit too much basing on like stats as my number one thing. Patrice. Not too much to say for Patrice. We got B's across the board from me, C's across the board from Bryn, and Travis has bumped her into B+ as of 2023. Patrice is good. But she's a little bit gimmicky, and she's a little bit, you can get a little bit fragile from your weakness as well. So I'm going to put her up in, I think B and B+ is good spots for her. All right, on to Innsmouth. Innsmouth! Okay, we all agree on B for a recent ranking of Sister Mary. And I'm actually curious... I'm actually curious how much of this, of all of our ratings, except for maybe because Bryn stayed B for the last 2 years, but like for me and Travis, how much of this was boosted by the Sister Mary deck I brought to our draft in Path to Carcosa. So if you did not watch that one or do not know what I'm talking about, we drafted a Sister Mary. We drafted our we've been doing draft runs where we get like sets. We draft our sets and build from them. And I built a Sister Mary deck with Innsmouth, Edge of the Earth, and one other cycle. It was the investigator decks. And I built a support Sister Mary. And when we were first building, Travis was like, support means I'm just not going to do anything. You guys have to do everything. But the Sister Mary deck, actually, it helped Travis. It helped our Kluver get clues in the early game, and it helped our fighter get fights in the late game. And it was actually really good at getting the job done. So that's why I think I put her up to B tier for me, and I'm curious if it's the same for Travis. I think that Sister Mary is going to get a bit of a boost when Hemlock Vale comes out, because once again, there's going to be Bless and Curse tokens, which are going to help her have more tools that she can work with. I think she's good, though. Amanda Sharp. As Bryn will always say, she has all 2s in her stats. Yeah, I think Amanda's S tier. I think she's not S tier for everybody, though. Amanda's S tier, where in the fact that as a newer player, you probably are going to struggle with Amanda. But for like if you're not, it's pretty hard to F Amanda up. Notably, Bryn did not give Amanda a rating in 2021. But as we can see, yes, the Innsmouth cycle was out. Does an ass backwards count? No. No, it has to be forward. Otherwise, it's not. Yep. I mean, I do think that... I actually don't think Bryn's ever seen Amanda be played in our group. But I remember when I was theory crafting, I had an Amanda deck I brought to the Crown of Eagle, a custom campaign, and it was my first attempt at a hand size deck. And I think this is how little we knew about it, right? Because I was like, I'm going to play a hand size Amanda deck. And I remember Travis and I were talking about it, and Travis said, I don't think hand size is good for Amanda Sharp. And I was like, I in theory, I think it is. And in that deck, I did hand size well, but not to the extent that if you actually try for it, you can do like really good with Amanda. But Amanda, yes, she's probably... This might sound a little bit controversial. This might be a little bit of a controversial take. But I do think that she is the best hand size player. Mostly because she can play like 4 Perception 2s a turn, which is really good. But you need to be building around it to really take advantage of it. And I think this is like where Amanda, it's like she's hard to learn because you have to like really be going hard on it. But when you do, oh my god, you do. What's better than one deduction a turn? 3 deductions a turn. Yeah, Trish is very good. What is Bryn on? Bryn's on the truth. No, Bryn's on, he likes making commenters angry. That's what Bryn's on. That's Bryn's favorite thing. Trish, yeah, pretty straightforward. A pluses across the board for our recent rating for her. Bryn was an S tier in 2022. I was an A in 2021. I don't necessarily disagree with that A in retrospect. I don't think it's too outlandish. But she is obviously very good. Trish is like one of the most like fair, powerful investigators, you know? I don't think she's ever going to be an S tier for me personally, but she is just so damn good at what she does, but she doesn't like feel like you're cheating, you know? Like maybe if you're doing the weird loop where you're, you know, cheating your weakness a little bit, like I'm literally describing it as cheating, but that's like one build, you know? Yeah, they're slam dunks, Yorick and Trish. They are. They're very similar, where like they're very powerful, but not necessarily because they are like busted, you know? She can spam Pen of the Queen though? Sure. Sure. I don't think that makes S tier. Just because someone can do Broken Thing, I don't think it makes them S tier. Once again, there's their peaks and the valleys. We want to meet right in the middle. You know, that's where like true power lies. Not here, not there. Because a Trish where she like, you know, she can do all this other bad shit. We want to find right there. We don't want to live here. We don't want to live there. So I don't care about spam and Pen of the Queen. Because that's like one thing, you know? I'm looking for like the median of what Trish can do. All right. Dexter Drake. That's a big drop for me, right? That's a big drop from A plus to B plus. Notably, this was A minus. Travis dropped down to A in 2022. So Travis saw the Dexter Drake going. It is ba, like sheep. We have a new one. We have a new word to go for. And Bryn dropped to A in 2022, but as you can 2023, sorry. But as you can see, we're all trending down on Dex. I would kill for a Dexter that was a 5-1-3-3. Now that's a stat line that gets me interested. 5-1-3-3. The 2 foot, it's what caused you to die to damage more than you think. Because like he's so shit at foot treacheries, right? That's why, yeah, because he's just one of those. What about a 4-fist Dex though? 5-1-4-2. I would take that as well. That would be a good time. Yeah. But as you can see, we're all trending down on Dexter. Oh, Silas, my boy. I put him from A plus to A this year, mostly because he hasn't really gotten any new tools. However, with all that said, Hemlock Vale is looking pretty good. Hemlock Vale is looking pretty good for my boy Silas. What's that? Is that the sound of 2 vicious blows I hear? Both in the form of long shot and strong armed? I'm pretty into that. Masks? I'll be honest. I've played Silas, and I tried playing him with the masks, and I was not super impressed. I think, like, I don't think it's a bad choice to play the Sparrow Mask and Silas. But I think you would rather be more active with Silas as opposed to passive with Silas. And I think that the mask is just kind of good, but not good enough. Twitch Eye Sparrow mask with meat cleaver. That could be fun. Yeah, that could be fun. Because I think like the problem with Silas, I don't want to get. I have to say this. I can't talk about this here. This is not the time to talk about the masks. We're gonna have a whole video on that coming up in the near future. But I think Silas, like I think A is a good spot for him. Bryn put him down to B+ or A-. Travis has had him in A for the last few years. I brought him down to A this year. But I do think I am curious to see how much the two new skills that he has for strong-armed and long shot, how those help him. Because vicious blows, having more of them is very good. Is very good. All right, on to Edge of the Earth. I've been very consistent. I think Daniela is really strong. My controversial opinion is that I think she's stronger than Mark. But I'm one of the few who has that opinion, so I could be completely wrong. But I think that she's a fantastic fighter with an incredible ability. So that's why she's lived in A+ tier for me for the last 3 years. It's been an A+ for Travis since 2022. And notably, Bryn is once again kind of all over the place. B in 2021, A in 2022, and B+. But I actually think that's actually not, I'm going to take it back. That's not all over the place. Because that actually is like a consistent. Bryn views her as between A and B, and now she finally is the fit there. So I'm actually going to take back what I said. I think it's actually pretty sensical, all things considered. However, I will say with that stronger than Mark, you need to be chomping at Daniela's bit and killing yourself. You need to be near death all the time. Which I think is the right way to play Daniela. I'm going to say I think it's the right way to play Daniela. But this lady, I think, is very powerful. And I think Hemlock Veil is going to be a really good boost for her as well. I want to throw a hatchet at someone with Daniela. Let's go. Norman Withers. A+ for me across the board. I think he's a very, very powerful investigator. Notably, was 2022 would have been the first year that we had him. No, probably 2021 would have been the first one with. When did Edge of the Earth come out? Very curious. The Travis dropped into an A this year. And I'm wondering why that is. Did Bryn have a bad experience with Norman in 2022? Yes. The Bryn bad experience with Norman in 2022 was the events only challenge. Yeah, the must kill Preston run. So that was Bryn's bad experience with Norman in 2022. That's why he was just dropped to D in 2022. Went up to B+ though from that. So good job, Norman. That's a big boost. That's a big jump. Not as big as your fall from 2021 to 2022. But yeah. I actually am curious as well to try and try him with Summon Servitor. That sounds like a fun idea. Norman is my personal S tier. I actually, honestly, if someone says Norman is S tier, I'm not going to disagree. Norman is high A+ tier for me. This man gets shit done, and he cheats. This old man is a dirty cheat, and he can really make shit work. Refilling Divination 4 was kind of gross, and I don't think I ever want to do it again. But maybe I will. Maybe I will. All right, Monterey Jack. I remember someone said in 2021 they're gonna Monterey Jack was gonna fall for me, and they were 100% right. I think that Monterey Jack is a good investigator, but I think he really feels Edge of the Earth deck building. I think he actually, at this point now, feels it more than Lily, right? I think he feels it more than Lily does. And you don't realize how often a scenario appears that doesn't let you move until you're Monterey Jack. And you're kind of just like, you're like Kevin McAllister Home Alone screaming. because it's like I just don't do my thing. My investigator card is blank, and while yes, I have a pretty alright stat line, it doesn't really do enough to get there. So shout out to the YouTube commenter back on the video I did on the retrospective for Monterey. The comparing our trends for investigator rankings then to what he is now, because you were 100% right. Buddy of mine took him to Blind Dunnage. He did not like the train. No, Monterey Jack and the train are not good friends. However, I do think that cards like Thieves' Kit have helped Monterey Jack's level 0 be a little bit less awkward. Being able to investigate with 5 foot is very nice for that. I think one more tool like that is going to make his level 0 a lot softer. But the reality is that the level 0 Seeker is very strong. But the upgraded Seeker, while good, is not fantastic. It's not to me, it's probably... Well, Rogue is easily the number 1 for me for experienced cards in terms of the higher threshold. And Monterey Jack doesn't get that. And he doesn't get a full swath of the level 0 Seeker cards, which is where level 0 is very good for Seeker. They're my number 1 for level 0. Which is why Trish is so good, right? Because she has the best of both worlds. Travis put out to B+, though, from C. Nice job. Lily Chen. She's all over the place for everybody. No one has been able to find a spot for Lily Chen that they view as consistent. Mostly because Lily Chen is probably in the investigator that has had the most... she changes the most with each card pool that comes out. I think also just Lily Chen in general kind of is, you can build her so many different ways that it's hard to get a bead on your personal power level about her, right? B for me in 2021, A+ for Travis. A+ for Bryn and I in 2022, B for Travis. A for me in 2023, C for Bryn, B+ for Travis. She's good. Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if each of us have a different rating for her next year. One day maybe she'll settle, but I think that I think she's good. I think she's a good fighter. The Travis one's interesting, but I think with 2021 we were making a limited decision, limited opinions on them, so we didn't really have much to go off of. And sometimes you just shoot your shot with what you do know about the investigator. Yeah. Bob Jenkins, I went to B+ this year from 2 A's. Bryn has been A+ for the last 3 years. And Travis has kind of also been a little bit fluctuating between B and A+ to A. Yep. I think all this, is pretty sound. I like B+ or A- for Bob. I like A for him too. As I liked him last year for A. I think Bob's cool. I think, unfortunately, Bob kind of got fucked by the Eon Chart taboo. Because the Eon Chart Joey the Rat deck was really fun. You know? Because Bob doesn't like to just investigate. Bob likes to investigate likes to investigate with lockpicks or old keyring, right? And then that's what Eon Chart would allow you to do, and then you could sell that stuff, and it was a really fun deck that you could play with it, but unfortunately you can't do it to the same extent. You still can, but once again, Bob doesn't really want to just natively investigate. He is a really good user of scavenging, mind you, but I think his just general consistency went a bit down with that taboo. Nacho! A+ is for me across the board. A, B, A+ for Bryn, and A+, A+ for Travis. A B from Bryn in 2022. Did he maybe say B for boring? I could see Bryn doing that. B for boring. B for boxer. Might even be B for boxer, too. I could see that also being what Bryn's saying. Nacho's, I think, is insanely powerful. He's very good. He deals damage like no one else. I do agree with the sentiment that he is boring, but I also agree with Travis's sentiment that it's kind of like there's other things you can do. You should just try it, because I do think that you could try other builds with Nacho. You don't need to always just do the same thing each time, because I think he can accomplish things with other methods, as like with other weapons as well. I think I want to try something like that. I think it could be fun to see how it goes. So I mean, but I think Nacho is just very good. I think he's a very good guy. All right, Harvey Walters, a new addition to the S tier for me this year. From A, he's been going up in value each year. I think his ability has obviously been very good at what it does, but his weakness is now completely negatable with the Grizzly Discover. What is it? Grizzly, the surgery one where you put a clue to heal 3 damage. It basically turns his ability into his weakness into a double action. Bizarre Diagnosis? Yeah, that one. Bizarre Diagnosis, thank you. And that has made it so that like now you don't care about what's in your hand. You just like, you draw your weakness, you take some damage, and then you basically just double action it away. He's always been very consistent with his card draw, but that Bizarre Diagnosis is really what makes Harvey Walters, for me, now in the S tier, because there's now no worry about his weakness, and he can just go nuts for it. You mean Surgical Kit? No, not Surgical Kit. You could do Surgical Kit, but I think Bizarre Diagnosis is in at level 0, and you can spend your experience on other things. Bizarre Diagnosis is the card. All right, let's look at this Bizarre Diagnosis. Something's happening in chat right now. Let's just see. Yeah, Bizarre Diagnosis. Place one of your clues on your location. Drop a clue. Heal 3 damage from an investigator or ally at your location. Costs 0. It's a level 0 card. So, yeah, that basically has made it so that Harvey Walters, his weakness is no longer a weakness. It's just a card you draw, and then you get rid of it. And then you keep your other thing, right? I was running Bulletproof Vest. Yeah, and like now basically you can do it. Like there was a lot of ways you can mitigate it. Like also another one was Versatile into Deny Existence, which I now personally think is like the worst one of the 3. Because just play Bizarre Diagnosis and you're gonna be totally A-okay. And then also just coupled with the fact with his consistency, him drawing more cards is really powerful. I put him up to S tier. Is he gonna stay there next year? I don't know, but I wanted to give Harvey, for me personally, the tier list I think he deserved. He's been A+ for Travis the last few years, and he dropped down to B+, but I'm not surprised. Once again, you see Bryn isn't like as high on Seekers as everyone else is, just because the way Bryn views power level in this game. Winifred. Notably, I did not rate her in 2021. B+, A, BAB, we got a BAB, and we got BBB. Yeah. Yeah. I think that this is we're all pretty much on the same page for her, I think. I think we're all pretty much kind of like sitting in the same world for her in terms of where we view her power. I don't really have much to say for Winifred. She's a very different sort of rogue. And like she gets tools that help her, but I don't think those tools are enough to move the needle in terms of increasing her power level. Get your asses ready, chat. This is interesting, huh? This is interesting. So, I dropped her to A+ for the first time in 2023. Bryn put her to A+ from B. Interesting. For the last 2 years, he was B. And then Travis was an A+ last year, but put her back into S tier this year. My water tastes funny. Yeah. I mean, I think Jacqueline Fine's ability is still very good. It mitigates a lot of the risk of the game, right? Like, it stops a lot of that. I'm curious about the bounce back into S with Travis. That's interesting to me. Maybe he saw someone in his family play it to great success, potentially. Did Bryn play her last year? I don't think Bryn's ever played Jacqueline. To be honest, I don't think Bryn's ever played Jacqueline. Okay, on to Stella. This one is also really interesting. I put her down to A tier from S. So we actually have now like a legit ass, no A+ in the middle of this one. Bryn's kept her at S tier for the last 3 years. And Travis put her from A+ up to S into this year. Interesting. Why did I put her down to A tier? I just don't think she's scaled with the card pool, you know? Like, I think other investigators, like, do the test at 0 generally better. Because you're not triggering her ability with... You're not triggering her ability with tested 0. And you have to, like... Stella has, like, for a lot of decks that play her, she has an 8 XP handicap that other survivors don't need to get similar results. And I think that's ultimately why Stella has dropped for me. To the A tier. Like, maybe she still deserves A+. But maybe I was feeling a little bit spicy. But I actually I'm pretty happy looking at her at A tier compared to, like, all these other ones. Because, yeah, like, she never does badly, but I don't think she... Yeah, Holy Helicopter, you're right. She never does badly, but she never really does fantastically, you know? And I think that just, like... I think, like, the Neither Rain Nor Snow at this point is now overblown. Because there's so many ways to nullify the encounter deck. And, like, Neither Rain Nor Snow ain't doing it for me anymore. It's not moving that needle. To be honest, though, I'm a little bit of a radical, and a lot of the times Ward of Protection isn't moving the needle for me anymore either. And Neither Rain Nor Snow is kind of just a Ward of Protection, you know? So, I like this, though. It's interesting. Not just because we got another horizontal, vertical, and diagonal ass on the board, but also just because, like, I just generally agree with myself, and I like it. I don't disagree with Bryn and Travis for their reasons for putting them in S tier. I'm just happy with myself. I think this is very interesting. All right. Carson Sinclair obviously wasn't around in 2021. We had our initial guesses in. I was below. Bryn was way below. But maybe also Bryn had, like, reasons for the D tier that were personal beyond just the power ranking. But Travis was right on the money with his initial assessment of Carson Sinclair, at least in compared to how we viewed them 1 year later. I think Carson's good. Yeah. B to A, D to A, A to A. All A's this year. Carson's a great time. Very fun to play. Really cool to see. Really cool to see him in action and get stuff done. Vincent Lee. I went from A to B from my initial thought on his power ranking. Bryn went from C to B, and once again, Travis was sitting at A and A. I think that his ability is like better than Carolyn's, but I think that he better than Carolyn's and more fun to play than Carolyn's, but I think it's like less consistent than Carolyn's in a way, if that makes sense. I think that just generally like horror was just like is just more of a thing, and his signature kind of like tells you that you want to be fighting. Honestly, I feel like horror is more spooky than heart. Agreed. I agree on that. I just generally I agree. His signature is trying to tell you to fight, but his stat line makes it so that you have to work a bit harder to make it work. I think Vincent's very fun to play, but I went down from A to B in my recent rating. Bryn went up, though. Travis stayed the same. Nice job, Travis. Kaimani Jones. I went from B to A- or B+. Bryn stayed at C's. Travis went from C to A after 1 year of playing with the investigator. I think Kaimani Jones is super sick. Really fun to play. But I think Kaimani Jones notably has their weaknesses as well, so that's why I gave them the B+, A-. I feel like Kaimani Jones is going to be the new one that chat yells at me about and YouTube yells at me about, because there's a lot of staunch Kaimani Jones fans in the ARKHAM community, and honestly, I think that's great. You should love those investigators, but I also once again go to my point where you need to look at not the hills, not the peaks, and not the valleys, but you should look at your general thing. And I think that Kaimani Jones is going to have a lot of weaknesses that come through, and a lot of setup required to get to where you need to be to find your peak as well. So that's why I'm very happy with the B+, A-. I like the A from Travis too. Killing a rat in 3 actions. Hell yeah. We love it. I love killing the rat in 3 actions. That was a great time. What the hell? Uh-oh, it's broken, chat. It's broken. Let's fix this. Okay. I forgot that happened last year. The slides there's actually like too big and the slideshow like resets because there's just too many slides. All right. Amina Zidane. At the end of the stream, can we get a surprise ranking of Corey Perry signing with the Oilers? Honestly, I wish I knew more. So, yeah, I'll pause the video. I don't want to. We'll get to Amina in a second. All right, Amina Zidane. So, notably, I actually did not feel confident enough to give her a rating last year. And Bryn as well did not give her a rating last year. But Travis gave her a B tier. And then a C tier into this year. But Bryn and I both gave Amina Zidane a D tier. I do think that... I think Amina is going to obviously get a boost from Hemlock Vale. I think the masks... I think she's probably going to play... The Mystic Mask is Brain and Book, right? The Seeker Mask is also Brain and Book, right? Those are the two masks that are Brain and Book, right? Because it's Brain and Fist. Okay, so she's not playing that one. Like, she could, right? Like, I think the theory holds true that you kind of just want to, like, you might just want to play the first mask that you get out. But I think she's probably going to like the Seeker one quite a bit, right? I also saw Dare BK, the person wrote the what is the word I'm looking for? The manifesto about your Amina rating when you didn't even give Amina a rating. I thought that was pretty wild. The ups and downs of being a content creator are always super, super interesting. But I do think that she is going to slightly get better. But with all that said, she still has 3s in her stats. Travis is pretty high on Amina. Well, like, by high I mean like a C tier, B tier. But Travis likes Amina a lot. I'm curious to see in the long term if Amina doesn't get notably better. If it's going to be like me and Jim, where it's one of those things where just like over time, you just have to be like, oh no, it sucks. But I mean, like I said, we don't know. We'll have to see how Hemlock Vale treats her. I've never been impressed by Amina when I've played her. I haven't been impressed by Amina when I've seen her. And mostly just because, like, I think the best way to build Amina is to care about your book, right? I think that's the best way to play Amina. And then play about the spells or assets that let you use your book. And just use your ability to get resources. The problem is... the problem is that her signature weakness is a nightmare. Her signature weakness is an absolute nightmare. It has the worst text, which is just shuffle back into your deck if it doesn't do anything, right? Like if your weakness doesn't Ancient Evils, it shuffles back into your deck. And a good player should like be trying to not... I feel like if you're gonna include Ancient Eviling in a kit, you need to have ways in that investigator's kit to nullify that Ancient Evils. Whether that be through positive tempo, or alternatively, the way that Marie Lambeau does, which allows her to remove a Doom with Mystifying Song, right? So, the best thing to do with Amina is to either accept the Ancient Evils, or continuing to potentially, you know... draw your weakness over and over and over again. It should have been one, like, if it doesn't Ancient Evils, you take, like, 2 damage or 2 horror, right? Like, treat it like Wednesdays a little bit. Yeah. There's a lot of times where people talk about Amina, and they also say, you just need to buy these cards for her. That's never a selling point to me. I think that a power level for investigators, you should really be looking at a deck with, like, 0 to 5 experience. Just my thoughts. But I think Amina's just missing a little bit of juice that's going to make her really, like, pop a little bit. I think she should have started with a 5 XP instead of Keimani. I think that's fair. I also think that, like, investigators, like, the 5 XP start is really weird to me. Like, Keimani should have had 5 XP, like, because who starts with XP, right? Parallel Roland, Father Mateo, Keimani. Are those the only 3 that start with XP? Father Mateo you have to use on blessed cards, right? Keimani should have been you had to have spent them on tools, right? Amina, I would have loved it if you had to spend it on charms. That could have been fun, right? I don't know. Mateo's XP is unrestricted? Is it really? I thought it was blessed the whole time. Shows what I fucking know about this game. I know nothing. I thought you needed to spend it on blessed cards. Never mind then. Scratch what I said. Scratch what I said. Yeah, Amina, sorry you're in the D tier, but, you know, you have great company. Daryl Simmons. This is another wild one. My opinions on Daryl Simmons kind of go against... go against the general grain for the Arkham community as a whole. If someone says they view Daryl as like really like S tier or A plus tier, I don't necessarily disagree. But I think he's kind of like he's very similar to like how I personally view Daisy, where it's the peak is really high, but your valley can be very low, which means that once again you're kind of just like halfway up the mountain. I've seen Daryl's like do things that are really impressive. And like I've seen them use like empirical hypothesis to great effect. I've seen them use I've seen like a clue drop Daryl. I've played a clue drop Daryl and it was really good. But like none of them have like blown me away in terms of like the power level that you were able to achieve. I even seen like a Daryl Simmons that was using their ability to like use on tests, and they still just like drew good tokens that they didn't even need to use their ability for. And I know you understand you can't like play for that, right? You can't like play around that, but it's like one of those things where like his ability actually is going to matter less than you think. I think his ability should be used not to just help someone pass a test. It should be like to turn a value to 0. If you're not turning a value to 0 with Daryl's ability, it's kind of to me like a blessed token where like, or like you could use it for an unexpected courage, but I think even then it's like not super duper impressive. How can you have a low value with a 5 and Survivor Seeker? It's easy. You just be good. Like a low value is like you're just like getting the job done, which to me is an A tier, right? Like his low value is like A tier for me. His high value is like A plus. So I put for A this year because I think that generally he's been less impressive than more impressive for me for the Daryls I've seen. I've seen Daryl players draw his weakness of 4 horror more times than I would have expected. Oh yeah. I've also seen the Rune film do a lot. Yeah. I've seen the Rune film like absolutely tear some Daryls apart. Suddenly you're just like, because like it's one of those things where like you have to like weigh, do I spend my evidence? Do I don't spend my evidence? And then like, yeah, you can counter his ability by like playing like Survivor Soak or Survivor like, you know, like that kind of stuff. But then that's taking away from cards to do other things, which you need to also do to play evidence. I think Daryl's good. Like an A tier, like I feel like this is the problem that a lot of players have, is that they see A tier and they think that means that's bad because there's 2 tiers above it. But now there is B plus, B, C, and D. There's 4 tiers below it. So an A tier is actually a very powerful investigator, and just like don't get so caught in the minutia. All right, who's next? Charlie Kane. Okay. I gotta be honest on Charlie Kane. I don't fucking know. C isn't even bad. Exactly. You get it. There, BK, you get it. I gotta be honest on Charlie Kane. I gave him a rating at A-, mostly just because like I've seen him played a few times, but I haven't played Charlie Kane. I haven't played this motherfucker, but I didn't want to leave him in a no rating again, you know? Have you seen the Summon Hound tech on Charlie? Yes, it seems good. But that's a lot of pieces you need to get together, right? So that's why like I gave him this rating of A-, B+, because there's a lot of different pieces that need to get together to do what Charlie does. Charlie's peak, I think, is really high, right? Like his ceiling is very good, but a bad mulligan can like fucking nullify you, right? So yeah, it's one of those things where I didn't really know, but I don't know much about Charlie. Like I said, I haven't played him myself, mostly just because I don't like the idea of playing him in 2-player. And I guess I just need to get past that. But like Charlie Kane is the complete like antithesis of how I play Arkham. So that's why like I never really wanted to play him in 2-player. I think I need to bring him into a 3-player game with Travis and Bryn. But the problem is all of those stuff of all the stuff that Travis and Bryn and I have been doing has been a little bit memey, right? We've been doing our draft runs. I gotta give him a shot. Like, that's why, like, there's a big asterisk on my rating for this guy, mostly because of I haven't actually played him myself. Even in a standalone, I haven't. No, I played him in a standalone? I don't remember if he was required. He probably wasn't required in my Play All Card Challenge because he wasn't out then. Sorry, not my Play All Card Challenge, my Play All Investigators. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I gave him a rating because I didn't want to go, just on the most informed opinion that I had of him, but I could be completely wrong. Noticeably, Bryn gave him from an A+ to an S, and Travis went down from A+ to A for his Charlie Kane re-rank in 2023. I hope to God I have something like I can officially say about Charlie in 2024. We'll see. Gloria Goldberg. Yeah. I got my S ranks. Travis's S's across the board. Bryn went from A to no rank to A+. I love the no rank in 2022. That right there is a fucking alpha move, you know? Just be like, I don't have a rank for her this year. Put her in the NA. Gloria's really good, huh? Like, just controlling the Mythos deck is very powerful. Can I've never played her above 3. Can I ask a question for someone in chat who has maybe played her at 4? What was 2021 Justin thinking on Gloria? I think A+ is still a fine rating for her. I'm not against it. It's the A+ in 2021 is just like, I think that she's gotten like, she didn't have foresight then, which really helps as well. Also, like, I don't know what A+ was thinking. I just didn't think she was an S tier for me then. I think my S tier was like very specific in 2021. So yeah, she is good in 4-player because she's fantastic in 2-player. How good is her ability in 4-player is what I'm curious about. Because her ability seems good in 3-player, but the most common way that you trigger it every turn is with like Alyssa Graham, right? At least you do in 2-player. So how does that, like, what are your ways to consistently see 4? Or do you just see like 3 and like use that? Because like that's where I'm curious to see. How deep does Alyssa go? 1. She goes 2 in 2-player. So that's why, like, in 2-player, Alyssa's really good. In 3-player, I also still use Alyssa each turn because you just give it to, like, the 2 people who can take it, and then the person who goes last just has to, like, you know, play the game of Arkham normally. Easily seen 2 or 3. Yeah, so that makes sense, right? You just kind of, like, give it to the ones who can take it, basically nullify 2, and then just have the last 2 just go blind. Yeah, that makes sense. I do think that... and being able to hide bad cards. Like, do you hide them or do you... excuse me. Because I always discard. So I always discard with Gloria because I actually think that hiding them in the basement is a trap because then you can draw them later. Just discarding them I think is, like, particularly so good in comparison. Right? I do think that her signature weaknesses are going to be bad. I think her signature weaknesses are going to punch you in the fucking throat. I think that's going to happen. And I think she needs it, to be honest. I think she needs to be taken down a peg. I think her ability will still be good, but I think that, like, when we actually see her official version, that, like, you look at it and you take damage, take horror. Like, I think you should, like, if you look at it, you take, like, 2 damage. I think she needs to be taken down a peg. I saved the hiding for cards like the Piper. That makes sense. Choosing Mythos Order is pretty crazy too. Yeah. 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 She's strong. She's very powerful. I'm curious when we get our official version of her. I do think she's going to be weaker with her official version. Mostly because she's going to have signature weaknesses in the encounter deck. Which is going to be pretty spooky. I mean, unless the signature weaknesses are just like baby mode, you know? Like, it's some of those things where, like, it's just like, if you draw this, give it to Gloria, and then she draws it. And it's like, test brain, you know? We're just never going to get regular Gloria. I could see that happening, too, to be honest. First we get parallel Gloria. Ooh. And then the news type investigator, where we get, like, them as allies, you know? Never regular Gloria. All right. Speaking of parallels, on to the parallels. This is going to be pretty quick because Bryn never ranks the parallels. So we're just going to have a blank hole for Bryn's ratings. Yeah, Travis and I are pretty similar. So Travis did a called shot of B in 2021 to C in 2022 for both of us, and then up to B for us in 2023. So, yeah, parallel Roland Banks. I think he's a good investigator. He's very similar in me to normal Roland, just like a different flavor of him, which I think is a very successful idea for a parallel. On to Daisy Walker. I did it. I spelled bad. I did it again, chat. So notably, Travis hates parallel Daisy, as you can see. D's across the board. But, like, her deck building's cool. Her ability is not good, but it's, like, the lightning bolt ability is not as good compared to Daisy's actual ability, right? But her passive ability, I think, is pretty fun to, like, you know, build a million things around. But I think she's fine. I think she's a good investigator. I think getting hung up on the +1 brain is not actually accurate because you're going to have a lot more than that as the game goes. And the game very rarely requires you to get rid of your assets that you have in play. I think the 2023-2021 just got it right. The long con, it does look pretty sus, doesn't it? I'm a secret for everyone. I think Parallel Daisy was the one who was dying just for the challenge scenario specifically, and they dropped that idea after her. I haven't played her challenge scenario, but I'm gonna wager that's not a bad prediction. Yeah, she's definitely, I think, like the strangest parallel. And I'd be curious what a new Parallel Daisy would be, because I don't think this is the Parallel Daisy we would see if she was released, like, tomorrow. Parallel Agnes, I gave her A's across the board. She's been pretty static for me. Travis went from C in 2021, A+ to 2022, to B+ in 2023. I don't have much to say. I think Parallel Agnes is a very nice investigator, and Travis has kind of been all over the place with her. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You can just see how that is. Parallel investigators, we're going to rocket through pretty quickly, I think. All right. Parallel Schizo Tool. So Travis went from B to A+ for the last 2 years. Notably, I had a pretty big drop for Parallel Skids. I went from A to A+ to B+, or A- rather. So a 2-tier drop from 2022 to 2023. And after recently playing Parallel Skids, I'm supportive of this. I think he's very good. I think for 2022, I was just on a high of Parallel Skids that felt really nice. But I think that, like, B+, like, he could probably be up to A again next year. I can see after I sit on him for a bit. But after playing with Eric, I'm kind of here for my ranking for him. And I agree, yes, best big money investigator. He does it very well. And his Elder Sign effect is insane. It's very good. All right, Parallel Wendy Adams. Travis gave A+, back-to-back. I went from a B to a B+. She's actually probably the Parallel investigator people talk the least about. And I think it's just because you're kind of like spoiled for choice with Parallel Wendy Adams, right? You kind of just have, like, the world at your fingertips when it comes to deck building, that you're kind of like, no, I'm okay. I don't think I want to eat anything. Thank you. This all-you-can-eat buffet has too much all-you-can-eat, and I don't think I'm ready for that emotionally. Because I don't see anyone talk about her, right? I've only played her a few times. I think part of that is also that Innsmouth has been released in the new format. Part of it should be that anyone that follows the releases has not touched her. I don't necessarily agree. Because, like, I think a lot of people online who talk, like, play digitally. I think that's the truth. Like, I'm sure people are playing, are waiting for them, but I imagine a lot of people aren't, like... I think a lot of people who print are probably also, like, playing digitally. Who's going to print a Parallel Investigator also probably are playing the game digitally. So I don't think that's it. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but But it's not what my gut is telling me. I think my gut is just that she's kind of just like overcomplicated. She has too many options, and she's kind of just boring. And I think Ohaku is going to fill a much better spot for this kind of style of play. I think Ohaku is going to be pretty fun. All right. These next ones, we don't have any trend. We just have the called shots for all of these. Parallel Zoe, I gave an A+. Travis gave an A. I could see me going down to an A in time. I'm playing her right now in a campaign, and she's good, but she definitely is struggling a little bit. So I think A+ might have been a little bit high. We'll see how we go in a year, though. Jim Culver, Travis and I switched. I gave an A to an A+. I also think that this is probably something that in campaign play, probably an A is pretty right. And then we got Parallel Ashcan Pete. I gave an S tier, mostly just because his guitar, to me, is so strong. It's so strong. I could see this going down in time, but I wanted to just like take a stand for what I think is probably the strongest signature asset in the game. It's insanely powerful, and it starts in play, and it just moves things around and gives you money or healing. Whoo! And then he still has an ability on top of it. It's a very powerful investigator. We did not do Monterey Jack. I'd probably give him a B+. But this is he's not on this one. But that's it. That is how all of our opinions have changed in the last 3 years. Wow. Man, now I'm going to have to start doing line charts for this in the near future. I'm going to have to start doing line charts because it's just going to get so much bigger. Hopefully we'll be doing this for another 4 years, another 3 years, sorry, and we can get 6 years of data. Wouldn't that be fun? Wow. Huge thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. Huge thank you to everyone on YouTube who watches our content. And a huge thank you to everyone in chat right now who hangs out with me when I record these videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.